Thank you so much for being here. It's good to see everybody. I'm Britt McClintock, she, they pronouns. Hello to everyone who is coming in from Zoom as well. We got a really awesome hybrid experience here. So that's awesome. We're really excited. I'm going to go ahead and let my co-presenter take over and we'll get started.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and virtually as well. My name is Kayla Stepter, she, her pronouns. And this is our presentation on disrupting our normal, reimagining the cultural blueprint of DEIBJA.
Oh, that's the slide, right? Sorry.
So we want to start off just by doing a land acknowledgement. You'll notice here that there is a QR code that you can scan. So as I do this at land acknowledgement, that QR code right there will might be one of the most important ones that we have here. It is to a Shumi land tax. So the idea is being that we are on the unceded territory of the Ohlone people. And as we are looking to give back land, you can do so by donating monies. And so if you're interested in doing that, or just like checking out a really, really awesome website that talks about Indigenous land, you can scan right there. We recognize that UC Berkeley sits on the territory of the Huichin, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community, inclusion, and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. As members of the Berkeley community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we stand, but also we recognize the Muwekma Ohlone people are alive and flourishing members of the Berkeley and broader Bay Area communities today.
Thank you, Kayla. Can we sound okay? Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, awesome. So again, welcome. And you might not know this, but when you walked through that door, you time traveled. And it's hard to tell because these are still the carpets of the future, but it is year 2073, I promise. And so you've come into this futuristic space today as a community. And some of you know each other and some of you may not know each other, but that's okay because we're in here together to do work as a community as well. And everyone on Zoom, you also have transported to 2073. I don't know if your house looks the same. It could look like something on the screen here, but yeah, this is important because you might not know, but for years, we've actually been working on ways to recreate systems that are grounded in equity. So in the future, workspaces are safe, people are seen, you're not fighting for justice, but instead, it's already happened, right? So you're showing up as you are, and that's how this space is today as well. We've found that when we work together instead of against each other, we can shift culture in this really beautiful way. And so that might be hard to believe, but we did it. We're here. We made it. Okay. And so when you transport back to 2023 today, we want to give you some tools to take with you as you go out and kind of set this path towards equity and justice and inclusion and belonging and truth in the spaces that you work. Another really amazing thing about the future is we've begun to talk about this coded language that gives our past workspaces meaning, language like professionalism, and all of the ways that we let time and org charts kind of like tell us what we're supposed to do all day long, right? Doesn't really exist here. We've gotten rid of that as well. So for the next however many minutes, I don't know, time's a social construct, we're going to try to create a space that doesn't feel so formal and also doesn't really feel like a workshop at a conference from 2023, right? We want this space to feel a little bit different.
So one of the things that we have in this futuristic technology is a clicker. I'm gonna grab that real quick. And as Britt was saying, we are going into this situation not in the traditional way. I know a lot of times you come to a conference, you sit down, you do your thing for an hour or 90 minutes like you are with us, and hopefully you take something away. But we are pretty good at what we do, but we don't know all the things that you all do. You all are experts too, right? And so our goal is for this to be workshop-esque. We are educators. And so we're going to run this like we would at a classroom. We're going to be looking for y'all to collaborate. We're going to be looking for you guys to talk to one another. It's crazy. And also to do some like reflective thinking. All right. So if you have a pencil and paper, if you have a journal, if you have something that you want to write on your phone, whatever, be ready to pull that out if that's how you think best. There'll also be, again, QR codes kind of spattered throughout. There will also be some videos for you guys to check out too. So we're going to be doing some work all together, and we're actually hoping that we can learn from y'all in the same way that you guys are hoping you can take something away from this.
Awesome. Thank you. How's that sound? Yeah. Okay. And for Zoom folks, hopefully is good. Right in the chat. Cool. Okay. So before we get started, it's actually really important that we go over some terms. These terms are words and terms that I'm guessing most of you definitely have heard, are probably very well versed in. But the importance of going over definitions when we're in this collaborative space is that so we're all working from the same definition in this space. Okay, we know that they're ever changing, but for today's purposes, this is what we're thinking when we think about culture, social constructs, and systems. Okay, so culture plays a crucial role in social lives, right? From shaping relationships to maintaining or challenging social order, determining how we make sense of the world and our place in it. Oop, sorry, I'm a hand speaker, I got to remember. Okay. And so we know that culture is extremely complex, right? And it's made up of material and non-material things. Non-material things being values and beliefs, right? And material things being film and music and literature and art. And so for the purpose of today, I want you to think about how material culture comes from or is shaped by non-material aspects of culture. We're going to look at social constructs. So social constructs exist because humans agree they exist, right? Yell out some social constructs. And in the chat, you can also type in social constructs. Time. What else? Seasons. Money. Woo, yes. Gender. Absolutely. What's that? Government. Okay. Yeah. Beauty. Right. So social constructs, they exist because we say they do, and they generate meaning through social and cultural views. Systems. Okay. So systems, they're just tools. We use them for a variety of purposes. And I would say lately the term kind of has been getting a bad rap, because of what it's attached to. So systems can be oppressive and discriminatory, but they can also be powerful and equitable, right? It's just a set of principles put together to create a framework that provide order, right? The railroad system, the public school system, the solar system, right? And so the last term that we're going to kind of dive deep and look at before we really get started is this term and this concept, Afrofuturism. So along with the previous terms, this is extremely important in the work that we're going to do here today, but it's also extremely important for the work that Kayla and I do. Most of the culture change work that we do is actually grounded in Afrofuturism. Okay, so this is the cultural aesthetic that combines science fiction, history, fantasy to explore and reimagine the Black experience. This concept emerged in the 70s, and we actually have seen a great resurgence of this as of recent because of 2020 and all of the racial unrest and the pandemic. The concepts around Afrofuturism have come up again for a lot of folks, right? Especially folks from currently marginalized communities. So We most often see Afrofuturistic imagery show up in art, but we can see it in philosophy, literature, music. Black Panther, right? The film that came out, that's a great example of Afrofuturism. If you've heard of Beyonce, she's new, she's great, check her out. But she actually, if you've seen her visual video, Lemonade, that is rooted in Afrofuturistic concepts, imagery, and philosophy as well. So the really interesting thing about Afrofuturism is that so much of diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, accessibility work involves imagining a different reality, right? So we are paving the way for people we have yet to meet with the hope that they don't have to endure the same discriminatory isms that we in 2023 had to face, right? So for diversity, equity, inclusion professionals, educators, activists, the concept works really well when we're talking about culture change. And why should we care what Afrofuturists have to say? Because the Black experience is defined by a historical struggle for existence. It is the right to live, to be considered a person, right? To be afforded basic rights in pursuit of political, social, economic equality. So because of this, Afrofuturism can see the parts of the present and the future that reside in the status quo's area of weakness.
So as we're thinking about Afrofuturism, we're thinking about imagining things in a different way, whether we're thinking about imagining what would happen if we pivoted, or imagining if there were not these oppressive systems in the first place. Our imagination inherently breeds innovation. But a lot of times when we think about this word innovation, we think of it associated with progress and growth and positivity and change and all these really wonderful things. And sometimes that really does happen, right? The Free Breakfast Project by the Black Panthers is a perfect example of imagining something different. That is what free and reduced lunch is based off of now when we look at schools. The idea that you can feed your children for free, right? When there's scarcity and lack. When we're thinking in this bottom picture here about accessibility, this is like a ramp for folks who use wheelchairs to be able to access. I think this is the ocean, right? But innovation doesn't always necessarily mean positivity or progress. When we're thinking about who is left out on purpose or accidentally. So we can also think about the response to slavery ending, right? Was segregation, were Jim Crow laws. That is also innovation, a new way to continue an oppressive system, right? Or if we're looking here in this picture, you'll notice like a bench almost with spikes on them that is specifically made to address housing insecurity, but really more specifically to make it so someone who is without a home can't sit and rest, right? And so as we're thinking about innovation, we shouldn't just think automatically it is a good thing or a bad thing. It's really just a thing. And what we do with it as humans changes, whether it's inclusive, exclusive, just, unjust. And therefore, what we need to be thinking about is when we have a problem, who are we, who is our solution centering? Who is it not centering? Who are we hoping that will benefit? Who are we forgetting about completely? And yeah, where does that go from there? Let me see if this thing works. No, would you?
Yep, I think it's just
slower. Got it.
Yeah, it just needs a second. Oh, wow.
Sorry, y'all, 1 second.
Cool. Okay, so a great way to question our innovative processes and policies. Yes. Yeah, I can do it. This slide or we will have, I'm sure we have all of those in the notes section. So we'll definitely get that to everybody. Absolutely. Thank you. Good question. Okay, so a great way to question our innovative processes and policies, right, is to unpack language. So I am the diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging lead at UC Berkeley IT. And so I actually thought it would be great for us to look at UC Berkeley Berkeley IT's core values and sort of unpack language in that way, right? So this is not about throwing shade at all. This is about looking like very thoughtfully at well-intentioned wording that was created by well-intentioned folks, right? Probably a very diverse group of folks who got together and thought, what matters to us and what can we do? What matters to the folks that we serve and what matters to the people that work here, right? But there's a lot in here. And so we really want to look at regularly, like, how is language coded and do we need to like change things up depending on where we're at?
So I'm going to give you just a quick moment to like read through this. We will be looking specifically at these taglines and specifically at these words. However, you can do this with your own value systems that you have at your own UCs, at your own organizations, your own teams. You can look at it when it comes to your own personal value systems as well. We'll be looking at these taglines. We champion diversity, we act with integrity, we deliver, and we innovate. I'm gonna give you guys just like maybe a few seconds to just skim through.
I think you have to keep that. Yeah. One thing that I didn't mention, I did say that we would keep this sort of as an informal space, which still we want to do that. This is an hour and a half, right? That's a long time. And so if you need to take a break and you need to step out, you should just do that and definitely take care of yourself and check in with yourself if you need to do that. We have a lot of spaces where we are working on our own, speaking with each other. That's also a really good time. If you want to step out, you should.
All right. So we're going to talk about unpacking the word champion.
I think you need to use the mic.
Oh, this one. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about unpacking the word champion and what does it mean to champion diversity. Understanding again that the language that we use, again, without understanding who the people are and all the things like don't really mean much, right? So what do we hope for it to mean? How is it actually playing out? So we're going to decode some of this language. So I'm going to ask you guys to answer two questions. The first one being, what does it mean to be a champion of diversity, specifically in the IT world? And the second is, what does it mean to champion diversity as an action rather than to be a champion, right? So what does it mean to champion as an action rather than to be a champion? How are those things different? All right, so what I'm going to have you guys do is I'm going to give you the opportunity to just like scan this QR code if you'd like to. It's an opportunity for us to kind of all see our collective thoughts together. When we look at Afrofuturism, a lot of times it happens in the arts, right? But we don't always look at it in what happens in our in our day-to-day, right? And I mean, at the end of the day, all of our lives are art we are creating every single day. And so because we are interacting with different social constructs, we don't always see how we are perpetuating them or how we are impacted by them because it's invisible. Somebody thought of it, but it probably wasn't any of us in this room. And so what this is giving us an opportunity to do is look at how deeply entrenched some of these invisible systems are impacting our lives and how they often go unnoticed. But then also realizing that we can reinvent them because, again, it's all just constructs, right? And so if we're reinventing them, are we reinventing them for the big glaring things that often marginalize or dehumanize, or the ones that are more subtle? In this case, like this language. Let's see. So the first question is, what does it mean to be a champion of diversity in IT? What you'll notice is these are some of y'all's responses.
Let's see, advocate, support, promote.
Ally, understand, many voices.
Yeah, above and beyond. Unsure, that's totally great. I probably would put that. Ask who is left out. Winner.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now I'm going to have you guys go to the next. So the next question I'm going to have you guys consider is, what does it mean to champion diversity as an action rather than be a champion as a noun? And if you are on Zoom, you can type this. You can also join Mentimeter at menti.com using that code. But you can also type into the chat.
Yeah, so again, advocate, definitely be intentional in hiring. I love that. Volunteer. Yeah. To be taking action now versus having previously taken some kind of action qualifying as success. That's good. And that I feel like has a lot of that kind of coded language in it too, that word success, productivity, right?
Volunteer, treat everyone with the same type of professionalism, showing up to do the work, regular meetings, listening to those who are not being served by the status quo and making changes to include them. I've seen listen a bunch of times, and I think that one's huge.
Yeah.
I'll give you guys like 10 more seconds, and then we're going to do it again. Stick up for others, be present, be vulnerable. All right. This time we're going to talk about the word integrity, with our two questions being, what does integrity feel like in the workplace for employees, for customers, for folks who are using whatever it is that you're producing? And then how can we create procedures and policies that uplift these feelings for everyone? Right? So how do we perpetuate this integrity? I'm going to give you all a second to scan this QR code if you're interested. I'll drag this over for you all.
All right.
So what does integrity feel like in the workplace for employees, for users? And if you did not get a chance to scan the QR code, you can use your phone still and go to menti.com. Code is 26891348.
We're not getting any kickbacks, but it does sound that way when she reads it like that. Yeah. I seeing honesty and transparency just so large right there in the middle is yes, absolutely. I think for all of the years of diversity, equity, inclusion work that both of us have done, when we speak to people going into different organizations, folks in varying parts of the org chart will always be like, we just want transparency. We just want honesty from leadership. We want to know what's happening, right? And so, yeah, that's what integrity feels like in a workplace for sure.
Yeah. And also thinking about what does that look like within our teams, of course, right? But also what does that look like for the folks who are not on the teams who are using whatever it is that we're using? I don't know all the IT stuff, that's more Brit and y'all, but like the folks who are getting the internet, right? Who are the ones who are on the other side on the Zoom. What does that integrity look like between those folks? And how do you find balance? I'm also saying honest answers, being seen, removing biases, repeatable reliability. I like that a lot. Structure, helping.
Yeah, safe space, disability, walking the walk. And, you know, I would imagine too, for folks in varying, you know, different UCs or organizations, integrity is a word that is used in core values often. So this is actually great, like to even just snap a picture or a screenshot on your phone of other ways to say this. That is really helpful when you're in meetings and sort of talking about the definitions around these things.
Absolutely. I'm going to move us to the next part. How can we create procedures and policies that uplift these feelings for all of us? We talked about honesty, transparency. We talked about these things. How do we recreate those procedures? How do we make it so that anybody interacting with our teams, with our systems, within a team can feel like they are able to show up with integrity and that others will show up with integrity too?
Yeah. Trust, company culture, absolutely. Accountability. Giving everyone a chance to talk, absolutely.
Someone else said daylight, which I think what that means is making sure that we are able to be outside and in the sunlight, which means a lot to me. But if that was yours and that's not what you meant, I would love to hear your thoughts, because I think about coming to work when it's dark outside, especially like in those winter time, and then leaving when it's still dark and never seeing the sun. Go ahead.
It's a verb.
Oh, as a verb. I'm going to give this to you so that other people can hear. Go ahead.
I meant the word daylight as a verb, meaning it's important to daylight the things that you are trying to cure by having integrity. You need to name the problems that you're attempting to solve in an honest way. Shine daylight into those corners. And if you don't do that, you can't act with integrity.
Thank you. I'm glad I asked. I asked for clarity. Okay. I'm going to let us scroll through just so we can see other folks' ideas. Make a budget. If this isn't a part of the budget, it isn't a priority. Listening, continually reflecting and revising and thinking about the ways in which you implement that on purpose, right? Committing financial resources, uncover the unseen curriculum, vet the policy beyond the leaders. Guess what, y'all? We're going to do it again. This activity is really just an exercise, because when we're thinking about how you think in an Afrofuturistic way, that's not really a natural thing to do. So we're just going to keep on practicing. Now we're going to talk about delivering, right? What are the time and quality expectations of your team for the product or service that you deliver currently? So this is you thinking about your day-to-day. What is it that you deliver? And how do we develop a culture where everyone on the team is supported in their delivery? I'm going to give y'all a couple seconds for this QR code by Mentimeter. We already got 10 responses. Y'all so quick. I just got to find where there it is. Okay. So what are the time and quality expectations on your team for the product or service that you deliver? Now, quick, perfect, immediate, cheap, balance, immediate service. Timely but not rushed, quality of service. Little impact. Future proof. Flawless. Hashtag Beyonce. But are there any that are coming up for you?
Yeah, sorry, I'm quiet over here because I'm like, whoo, this is stressing me out. I'm so sorry y'all are feeling this way. A lot of, yeah, just the perfect and the, I think that there's a narrative that goes with IT, which is kind of this, which is like ASAP, and it's reliable and it's there and it's right. And I don't recall there being a lot of conversation after those 2 years of remote work where IT workers were asked to do what felt like the impossible immediately, right? So yeah, I was just feeling stressed out for you all. That's all.
And on the flip side, as we kind of start thinking about freedom dreaming a bit, how do we develop a culture where everyone on the team is supported in that delivery? So now we're revisiting 2073, right? What happens when we're all supported?
Yeah, I feel like this one is resonating a lot, I think, with the work that I do, especially at Berkeley IT, is this like taking time to listen to those on the ground doing the work. And we really want to do that. And it tends to be something that we don't build in to our days always, but it's great to see it up there as, someone, whoever put it up, that it's important. I agree. I think it is, a lot of folks had to be in person for those 2 years as well during the pandemic. And no one really asked if they didn't want to be, right? Like people were, I had plenty of conversations when I started at Berkeley IT with folks who were in person, and they were like, I had to run all these cables and I had to do all of these things, and no one really listened to me, And so I think that this is definitely a way to develop culture where everyone is seen and supported. Yeah, slowing down, carve out time for reflection. Yeah, start with me. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
A holistic understanding of our circumstances,
Mm.
relating, clear directions. I've seen say no, so we can say yes to the most important work, but I've seen say no, I think, one other time. Learn from other voices, create boundaries. Recognize that inclusive innovation takes time. Rush and urgency means someone is left out. Blameless review of outcomes. Ooh. All right, y'all, we got one more. We're going to look at this word, innovate. How do we value and prioritize the non-technical skill to push innovation forward? And then understanding that not everyone has a seat at the table. Under what circumstances does innovation foster exclusion in IT? I think those questions are actually reversed, but yeah.
Yeah, innovation is another one of those, I think, very like loaded and coded words that we tend to use a lot. Yeah, so the question was understanding that not everyone has a seat at the table. Under what circumstances does innovation foster exclusion in IT? I see hiring, silos, microaggressions, top-down philosophy.
Waterfall projects,
Mm.
focus on leadership, limited access, Zoom meetings, silos. fast, quick, careless. A lot of that makes me think of in 2020, after we all moved remote, and then George Floyd was murdered. And very quickly, folks were like, you know what we need? A DEI professional or an ERG or a statement. Without necessarily thinking through what the hoped impact would be, right?
Yeah, at that point, just like the PR stuff that you thought.
Mhm. I'm going to move us forward. How do we value and prioritize the non-technical skill to push innovation forward? So when we say non-technical skill, we were thinking about in IT, everybody here has some technical skill that Kayla does not have, right? Whether it be I know how to code or I know how to do the business side of things, right? Like I know the finances piece, and that's wonderful. But then part of that kind of adds to the exclusion of it, right? You're not in this room and you don't have a seat at this table because you don't know what we're doing. Or like, I don't know if I trust your professional expertise enough for whatever reason. Maybe you have a strong accent and that makes folks think that you don't know what you're talking about, even though you've been doing this. You're not new to this, you're true to this, right? So as we're thinking about non-technical skills also, right? Like, what does it mean to show up when you are the person who knows how to build community? When you are the person who knows how to ask questions? Like, how do we build that in to push innovation forward?
So build time for training, adding folks from different backgrounds, value these skills in promotion and hiring. Absolutely. Bringing in diverse perspectives.
I just want to shout out the sociology backgrounds out here for everybody who was not in this techie life.
Okay, listen to Black women. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, center the affected people in addressing issues, leaders from all backgrounds. Yeah.
Someone posted this question, change management, how do we alleviate fear? I think that's a really powerful question, right? Because with some change, usually comes some fear. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. But I just wanted to name that question as you guys continue thinking.
Also, I'm a big fan of answering a question with a question. And I do think that at sometimes the questions tell us more than the answers. So I think that that's great. And that's a really good way to think about some of these things that we'll bring up today as well.
We will share these share outs with the team in the back that's making the magic happen. So hopefully you guys can have access to it, but I'm going to exit out for now. So if you found this exercise challenging or difficult, that makes sense. You were supposed to. If you did not find it challenging or difficult, you should come on up and take the mic. It was meant to be difficult because it is, we're asking you to think about things in a very different way, right? In a way that I think could be productive in the long run, but isn't necessarily quick in the beginning, right? And so we wanted to give you all an opportunity to think these things through, because again, when we're looking at how folks end up marginalized or excluded, a lot of times they're in ways that we didn't really think about or expect. I mentioned before thinking about dialects and accents, right? Being a way that we decide who is an expert or not, right? Or looking at someone's hair and deciding that person is professional or otherwise. We are all ingrained in this, right? So it doesn't really matter your identity. We've been told what is professional. We've been told what is productive. We've been told what language we should be using, what language we should not be using. And therefore, it takes really intentional unlearning and uncovering and investigating, not just others, but ourselves as well. And when we do that, it can have really dramatic change in culture and lasting change in culture. But when we don't, it shows up in some pretty crazy ways because we are human and make human mistakes. Do you mind? So I wanted to just quickly highlight some ways that this shows up in tech, right? A lot of times we go into, when we look at, again, innovation, specifically dealing with tech, we're like the new frontier. We have alleviated things like racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, so on and so forth. And that's just straight up not the case because, again, humans make this, make these different inventions, right? I'll go through each of these very quickly. This one here is looking at something called pattern. Pattern is a technology that is like facial recognition, and also to be able to say like somebody did a crime, and based on whatever metrics I put in, where are they from? Have they done something before? What's their background coming from? I can determine as a judge if they're likely to do a crime again, and base their sentence on whether or not they should get a lighter sentence or a heavier sentence based on whatever the algorithm comes up with. But we see that pattern doesn't actually do a good job of doing, in fact, it's negligible, of making those predictions. And also Black men all seem to always get heavier sentences when you just throw it in the algorithm. No person's hands are on it. Facial recognition technologies have a really hard time identifying specifically Black women. You'll notice this when you're on Zoom and you like don't see our hair if it's an afro, right? When we're looking at this map here is of redlining, which is like segregation when it comes to housing, right? And I want to say this is from the 30s, yeah. This map is almost identical. It's from 2022 and it's looking at access to the internet or lack thereof. And then finally, we have one ChatGPT, which has been such an interesting innovation, right? Again, coming from classrooms, our students are all over it, right? They be writing all the papers, or rather they ChatGPT all the papers. And there's some really, really amazing things that can come from ChatGPT, whether it be like, help me write my resume, whatever. But also, did you know that ChatGPT, the folks who actually vetted it are Kenyan? It comes from a Kenyan, it was a Kenyan company, all working on less than $2 per hour, which is significantly less than the organization that created ChatGPT. And what their job was to filter and identify all the really awful, awful things that were on the internet and see if we can try to filter through all that mess, and cause some really awful side effects, looking at hate speech all day or violent crimes or whatever that looks like, terrorism. And it was noticed that there was a need for some therapy, right? But $2 an hour. So these are just some of the ways that that folks are not seeing when it comes to technology. We just wanted to give a quick little moment to like show what this could look like. This is a little clip. And as you're watching this clip, we want you to consider these questions. Who is technology being created for? How is it going to intervene in business as usual? And who, if anyone, is being left out? Go ahead. Oh, you have to click on it.
Stop. I need to be out of this conversation by tomorrow.
Oh, one other thing.
Hold on. Not sure about sound.
I think you just need to click here. Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that there's something we.
Is there a closed caption?
There is. Sorry.
All right, y'all. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, while we work on this little technical difficulty, what are some, as you guys are thinking about different technologies, are there any others that you've noticed that we could use some looking into? Yes, ma'am. Here, I'll give you this.
Bless you.
I often wonder about the restroom when you wave your hand in front of the water and the soap, when I think about the facial recognition, because I'll see someone leave that sink, I'll go up to that sink and all of a sudden it does not recognize my hand for soap and water. And I often wonder, did they do enough QA testing with a variety of skin tones? You know, it's just a thought.
Absolutely. And then like, who do you ask? Right? Like, where do you go to be like, I would like to put in my little piece.
Yeah, I have soap in my hands.
Mhm.
Yeah, can you help me? Yeah.
Good.
Right. I think we're good. Let me
right.
start this over. Maybe not. Well, no, it's not. Let's try this. Oh.
So the bar on the bottom of all the little images, I don't have the yeah, the pop-up.
Sorry, it's hard for me to. Down here?
In the middle of the screen.
That'll do it. Nope. Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's what it is, technology.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, this is actually a really old clip, and I don't know if anyone has seen this, but I want to say it's over 10 years old. And basically, they put in a bunch of facial recognition, like with or around the building, and they're like, "This is great because we're going to save money." Except it doesn't work for Black folks, right? And so we were just trying to show a kind of an interesting way where, yeah, do we ask these questions before we create these things, and then once those are put in place, like, you know, do we question and then go back and change them when we need to?
And also just in this clip, the person here is talking to this woman in the white and saying like, is this a problem? Like, what's going on, right? And she's like, oh, it's not racist because it's a computer, you know? And so by creating this technology that we say, that helps us as humans to release, like, it's not on me anymore. The computer said so. And so it re-legitimizes
Mhm.
that oppressive system just one more time, and is more deeply ingrained and more difficult to detangle.
But when we do ask these questions, right, we know that we can have some really amazing things happen, right? Because technology is absolutely amazing, and people have made and been able to make a lot of change, make a lot of noise for the betterment of society, and specifically for currently marginalized communities, right? We can use the UC's GRLN project, right? And putting that policy in place, right? So that's the gender recognition and live name policy. IT is playing a huge role in implementing that. And even though that's something that we have to do, it actually is wonderful because it changes the interactions that we have with our colleagues, people who didn't know how important it is to make sure that we're using live names, right? It makes me personally going to work just feel better. And so I think that's a wonderful thing. We can also look at all of the technological advances that have been supporting Black female-owned businesses. I'm not sure if you all know, but Black women are one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurs in the country. Companies owned by Black women soared to 43% from 2014 to 2019. Okay, so we won't talk about the lack of funding, but still able to make these really amazing businesses because of technology, right? Black Lives Matter is also a really good example of that. So in organizations, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and its technology outcomes, or excuse me, technology coverage as converge, let me say that one more time. In organizations, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and its technology converge as work equity, right? So when we take an honest look at technology and innovation, the good and the bad, and then we look at the humans behind that, we can start to talk about ways to restructure, reframe, and disrupt the norms. So I don't think that there is one clear path about how we get to these new equitable systems. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong way. I just know that we need a variety of voices, right, and perspectives and actions, and then trying and retrying and unlearning and learning continually as a process. I would say, some things that have been helpful for me in my work is first, we need to make sure we're using both objective and subjective DEI metrics, right, to capture the employee's full experience. So that's one of the first things that we need to work on. As for culture, you probably already know, right? But culture has everything to do with performance and the success of business, right? Culture isn't what happens in a day. It happens every day. So it's not a check the box situation. It is a practice, very much like what we just did in the beginning of this. Last thing is leadership, right? So the responsibility for leadership, executive directors, vice chancellors, et cetera. All of the mental and emotional work that I do all year doesn't really matter if my leaders aren't willing to step up, right? And leverage privilege and make sure that they're actually supporting and modeling the things that we're trying to put in place, okay? We also need to be looking at hiring. And I hear this a lot, which is we need a more diverse hiring pool because, that way we can get all these different perspectives. But, or I should say, and you also need to change the culture within your work, because you can hire all kinds of Black and brown and LGBTQ and whoever folks, but when they show up to work, if it is a harmful culture that you have not worked on, they will not stay, they will leave. And it has to feel more like more than a PR stunt, right? It can't just be like the old college brochures where they're like, look at all of these Black people. And then you go to campus and you're like, oh my gosh, right? You have to mean it. And so it's a lot of work to mean it. Yeah, so these are just some ways that we can start to really disrupt that norm I'm talking about. Oh. Well, Octavia Butler doesn't want to share, I guess, with you, but essentially she's saying that change is the only constant, right? So I know how strange it feels to change behavior and habit and process, but we've been doing it for a really long time. And so now we're going to move into one of our favorite tools, I guess, is this idea of freedom dreaming. Let's see. Oh, there she is. Okay, great. Perfect. So all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. And the only lasting truth is change. All right. Yeah, we'll see if this works. So this is a 30-second clip. And if it doesn't work, we'll make sure to share this with everyone about freedom dreaming. So let's see. It's not our day. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Geez, please. All right. That's it. Not a big deal. So freedom dreaming essentially is this idea that we will face these very harsh realities and conditions, right? But we don't have to face them with despair. Instead, we can think of different ways, right, to reimagine the 2073 dream. We can do that in 2023 when you guys leave. And you can also do it for larger systems. You can also do it for yourself. And I would say you should be doing both those things probably at the same time. I say this all the time, but I am a product of the same system that you all are a product of. So I'm also going to misstep. I'm going to forget things. I'm going to leave things out. But if I'm honest, transparent, I take accountability for that, right? Then we can move forward in this. And so Freedom Dreaming is just this really wonderful way to make this happen. And so as we move into this, we're going to have time for you to like hang out, write, we'll play some music. That's when you can walk around, stretch, whatever you need to do, take a breath, whatever, and then come back in and we'll share out. So I'll give this to Kayla to explain, and then we'll move on.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about freedom dreaming. I'm going to just ground you a little bit because, again, this is a concept that should be newish, right? Or at least implementing it into your own life. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is take a moment to think about your team, right? Take a moment to think about what exactly it is that you guys do. What's the purpose of that team? What are you hoping to produce? What is the service that you're providing? And now, in order for you to do that, whatever that purpose is, I want you guys to think about some of the systems that you guys have in your mind, right? That you interact with every single day. It can be the very, very technical systems, like running the wire. Or they can be email etiquette. It can be timeliness. It can be self-care, right? Things that are a little bit like softer, like soft skills. Take a minute to think about it. All right. If you got it, I'm going to have you zoom in on that. Because sometimes we can think a little bit too big. You can be like, I am going to change the entire culture of this community, whatever, by myself. Because it's collaborative and it takes a lot of work, right? So I want you to take whatever system it is that you interact with, and I want you to think about maybe some of the pain points you have with it. Some things that don't feel so good to you, or where you notice it doesn't feel so good to other folks. And I want you to zoom in on it. And now I want you to think about your locus of control, your identity, and your positionality. How can you shift that system? When I ask you to look at your identity, it's important to think about who you are. How do you show up? If you're saying that I'm in this room and I'm noticing that women in the room, their voices are not, their opinions and their voices are not heard, and you yourself identify as a woman, that can be a difficult thing, right? So thinking about your own personal identity and like what risk you would have to take or not have to take. What does it mean to be someone who is of privilege and able to step up as an ally, or my preferred word is like co-conspirator, right? And then think about your positionality. If you are an individual contributor, then more likely than not, your locus of control is going to have more to do with your day-to-day. How do you decolonize your day-to-day? How do you decolonize the system that you interact with or how you interact with it? But if you find yourself in leadership, then your locus of control is going to be a little bit, probably a lot bit wider, right? It's going to allow for some collaboration. It's going to allow for some systems change. It's going to allow for some culture change. So as you guys are thinking about where you show up, whether it's your identity, or privileges that show up around your identity and privileges that show up around your positionality, I want you to think about where your locus of control is, and that's where you're going to freedom dream. I also just want to put a quick caveat in here that we all of us in here have different privileges, whether it be the education that you had or the fact that you are here in this campus today, that we are in California, as opposed to, let's say, another state where you can't show up as you are in the same way, right? So as you're considering, again, your locus of control, I'm going to ask you very, very humbly to remove blame out of it. And instead think about, okay, so now that I'm here, what am I going to do with it? All right, so this next 5 minutes, thank you. You're going to answer these two questions around this system that we just isolated. What is the freedom dream? Why is this freedom dream important? And what will be its impact? What structures will you need to dismantle? And how will you rebuild them? Because if we decide we're going to break things down, that's great. But then how are we going to replace it? Because something has to come in place, right? You're going to think about this for the next 5 minutes. And if you need to take a bathroom break, you absolutely should, or get some water, or want to walk around. or want to chat with your friends, you can. Or a new person, talk to a new person, you know. If you're on Zoom, feel free to type them in the chat box. After this 5 minutes, we will actually come back together and you'll have a chance to talk about it with one another. And we're going to see if we can make some music happen for you in the meantime, in between time. But for right now, our 5 minutes is going to start. Do I have any questions? Sure. That's okay.
Yeah, earlier with the slide, you showed example both of the cons and the pros. Is there more example that a site could provide or any additional references? Because I feel like with a lot of IT folks, we like examples. So if we could see both the pros and cons, I think it'll be more impactful.
Yeah. So we included enough pros and cons to just fit on the slide, but there's so many, right? And I think that we can definitely talk more about it. If in this 5 minutes you want to talk directly about it, you can talk to both Britt and I. I'll be happy to help you brainstorm some. This actually goes out to everybody. If you have some questions about like, how can I think about the systems that I have locus of control over and such, we are happy to brainstorm with you. Again, I can't promise I have expertise in IT, but I do have some ideas around how to freedom dream, right? And yeah, so that's absolutely possible. Also, I would encourage you guys, you can also talk to one another because we got a lot of experts in here on a lot of different things who can maybe have some different perspectives than just the two of us. So yes, I'll be right over. Britt will be right over.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one thing I just want to say as well is sometimes when we use the term freedom dreaming with certain groups of folks, they're like, that sounds wild. Like that would never work. This is cool in this space. But like if I take freedom dreaming back to my CIO, they're gonna be like, okay, right. So you can call it other things, reframe it. I mean, that's like a really big part of all justice, equity, inclusion work is about reframing and restructuring. I'm sure you all know what's happening across the country at other universities right now with DEI. And so we just have to get creative about different ways to do this work. And we've been doing it. We've been fighting for it since the civil rights movement. We've been doing it and just calling it something else. So if you need to call it strategic planning with a twist, call it that. But it's the same idea, right? So just something to think about too. If you're like, I don't know about this, it works. It's just, you just reframe it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're going to give you all your 5. And if you need us, just holler or raise a hand or whatever feels good to you. And we'll be there. Thanks.
There you go, Matt.
Oh, that's this one of all the things.
You're a man of your word. Oh yeah, oh yeah. What's that? Some things are possible when we believe. No chains are breakable when we receive your way. You keep your promises. If you said it, we believe it. Hey, if you said it, we believe it. Hey, if you said it, we believe it. If you said it, we believe it. We are man, you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. You keep all of your promises. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. If you said it, we believe it. We are man. You're a man. What's that? Oh, oh, oh. We have this confidence. You finish what you started. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. You're present in every step, patient in every heartache. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. You're not gonna start with me. Oh, say this, y'all. Say it. If you said it, I believe it. If you said it, I believe it. If you said it, I receive it. If you said it, I receive it. If you said it, then you mean it. If you said it, then you mean it. Cause I really, really need it. Cause I really, really need it. If you said it, I believe it. If you said it, I believe it. If you said it, I receive it. If you said it, I receive it. If you said it, then you mean it. If you said it, then you mean it. Cause I really, really, I am who you say I am. Hey, I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. got miracles on miracles, a million little miracles, yeah. Miracles on miracles, count your miracles, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't even count them. I got miracles on miracles, a million little miracles. Everywhere I look, I see all of the miracles on miracles. Count your miracles, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't even count them all. 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 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm believing, I can't even count them all. I'm believing, I can't even count them all. I'm believing, I can't even count them all. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't even count them all. I'm believing, I can't walk and talk and move and miracle. I'm believing, I can't walk and talk and move and miracle. I'm believing, I can't walk and talk and move and miracle. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't even count them all. I got miracles on miracles, a million little miracles, yeah. Miracles on miracles, count your miracles, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't even count them all.
All right, y'all, I'm gonna have us come back together one more time for the one time. You had the opportunity to chat with one another a little bit. You had the opportunity to maybe think independently. Maybe you did something in a journal. Maybe you just sat quietly. Maybe you left and didn't think about this at all. Either way, we are going to take this next time to actually talk to each other on purpose. Would you mind clicking one more time for me? So we're going to be thinking about how we recreate the systems in our workplace to reflect freedom and liberation, and how do we become co-creators in our organization's collective freedom. So this is what's going to happen. This time you just ignore that. Make sure if you're sitting next to someone, great, that's perfect. If you're not sitting next to somebody, we would love for you to find a way to be close to somebody, or even like holler behind you or in front of you or whatever. Make sure you introduce yourselves. Then think about, what did your freedom dream look like? Make sure that everybody has an opportunity to talk about what their freedom dream was. And it might require a little bit of explaining, right? From there, you're going to think about, how does your freedom dream change how you show up individually? How does it change how you show up with and for yourself and your colleagues? And then finally, how do we do this work together? All right, these are the questions that you're going to be asking yourselves. Who are you? What does your freedom dream look like? So just explaining what you thought of, what questions might have come up for you. Like, what does it look like in your wildest dreams, even if you don't see a path for it right now, because we'll get there in a second. And then how does it change how you show up? How does it change how others show up? How do you do it together so you guys can show up together?
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate the in your wildest dreams, Taylor Swift thing, because it is really important that when we do this freedom dreaming, it could look something like, we need to flatten our org chart. That's actually like the #1 thing that people are like, we could never.
We have to have a CEO. We have to.
Yeah. And if we even change it, I wouldn't even know how would I come to work. But that's actually a really good one, because it's honestly easy to do, and plenty of companies have actually done it. And so
with success.
Yeah, successfully. So yeah, think about those things that you're like, we just could never. That's actually probably the freedom dream. And it is very possible.
Yeah. So we're going to see if this video works. And then this is just a time for you all to speak with one another about what you came up with. The questions will stay up and will help you to continue to think about your freedom dream. If you have ideas for other folks, please give them. If you have thoughts about how to see how you make these things come to fruition, if you have thoughts about moving forward, like we're going to get into how do we make it happen. So share with one another because we need each other. None of us can do this work alone. And so the purpose here is to now be collaborative and to think about how we do this work in community.
Cool.
To be here with
Music.
NPR Tiny Desk concerts. I think this is like such a dream for us. And we're gonna get into our next song, Gyra.
My testimony, I'll never be more loved than I am right now. I'm not holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. It doesn't take a trophy to make my father proud. And I'll never be more loved than I am right now. Oh yeah.
Going through a storm, but I won't go down. I hear your voice carried in the rhythm of the wind to call me out. You would cross an ocean so I wouldn't drown. You've never been closer than you are right now.
We call you Gyra.
Gyra, you are enough. I'm already loved, I'm already chosen, I know who I am, I know what you've spoken, I'm already loved, more than I could imagine, and that is enough. If he dresses the lilies with beauty and splendor, how much more will it clothe you? How much more will it clothe you? If he watches over every sparrow, how much more does he love you? How much more does how much more? How much more does how much more does how much more does how much more? How much more does how much more does how much more? Gyra, he loves you. Gyra, he loves you. So don't you worry, no. Don't you worry, no. Don't you worry, no. Don't you worry, no. Gyra, you are enough. Sing it out, Gyra, you are enough. So I will be content in every circumstance. Gyra, you are enough. If he dresses the lilies with beauty and splendor, how much more will he clothe you? How much more will he clothe you? If he watches over every sparrow, how much more does he love you? How much more does he love you?
real quick. I feel like some people don't know what that song means, and that word Jireh, it literally means the one who provides, God who provides. It's short for Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who will provide. And so it's kind of like, what does Jireh mean? But it's just that God provides. He reigns on the just and the unjust. He is benevolent and loving to everybody. And so many people think that God is angry and mad, but that's not true. God is love, and that's what we believe. And so we just wanted to share that. And so we were able to recently go into the prisons and have been ministering there and just showing people that society often forgets about.
We're going to give you guys like 1 more minute.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Man, that's still one of my favorites.
I know.
Okay. Well, we're on tour right now, and we also have an album out right now called Kingdom. And we
recorded it
recorded in the prison, Everglades Correctional Facility. Our brothers down there, what's up? Just in case y'all watching this. But we collaborated with a living legend. He's alive, y'all.
All right, everyone. We're gonna come back together here. It's my teacher voice. Okay, everybody. So time goes fast when you're freedom dreaming, because now we only have 10 minutes left. And we just realized that the most important part's the next slide. So we were like, uh-oh, that's how you do it. That's how you actually like make a plan. So obviously, right, there's dissonance between now and our 2073 dream, but there is a path for sure. And so we were going to have you do this in small groups. It's not going to work. We will definitely make sure you get slides to do this work, but these were some of the things that we were going to discuss, right? So actually making your plan and starting here, because I think that it's really helpful when we start to build those things out. And then we go back to our day-to-day, it's really easy to forget all of the really wonderful things we talked about and the way we want to change. Well, this is how I feel. I'm usually like, I'm going to change the world. And then I go to work the next day and I'm like, I'm so tired. I can't even figure it out. Right. So, so these are things that, you know, as you had discussion and you thought about these freedom dreams, that we want you to start to build, right? So how you'll start, what are those action steps? Definitely thinking about obstacles that will come up, because they will, and we just know that. And then how you'll respond to them. You know, what resources you will need, that's a big one. Usually we tend to think about the monetary right away, but I promise you there's other resources just in this room, right here even, right? And then how will you know when you are done? That's my favorite question. You won't, and you won't be ever. And that is the point, which is a wonderful thing about this, because then you just start and you keep moving on to bigger things, right? Those incremental changes are huge. And then enough of those really do change an organization. I have seen culture shift. I have seen it change. I promise it can happen. Go ahead, Kayla.
Yeah, I just wanted to name a few things. First thing about like obstacles that may arise, and planning for those obstacles is very important, right? Because again, they will come up. And if you have a plan for them, it makes it a lot more, it makes it a lot easier to navigate. It also makes your plans more realistic, right? As you start thinking about your timing, as you start thinking about what the actual plan is, like maybe that means you actually do need 3 more steps in that action plan. And then around the resources that you'll need, those resources can be external, but some of them also can be internal, right? Again, am I the connector? Am I the questioner? Am I the person who, when I say some people just listen, right? Like, what are the internal resources that you have that you can also implement and execute? That is not to say that you don't need finances, right? Or time or whatever to do these things. You do. But there's also some things that we all inherently have and that we all inherently show up with. I know myself, I'm an introvert, so I'm not like, this is a lot. And so maybe I don't show up as the person who's like, I have an idea, but instead I'm the person who's like, hey, I know that you had this idea, but I'm really good at this thing. Maybe I can help support, right? That's it.
Yeah. And last, I know we only have a few minutes. There's a very specific reason that Kayla and I actually introduce ourselves at the end of this presentation. So we are going to talk about ourselves very, very quickly, but one reason we don't start, because we think that it's really important first to kind of like set this foundation that this is a co-learning space. This is collaborative. We are a part of that too. I was at a conference once and someone came up to me and said, "What letters are after your name?" I was like, what? You know, it was this really interesting thing that if I had specific letters after my name, it meant that everything I just talked about was way more believable, right? And we do that a lot in academia, especially. And so when we're trying to switch things up and flip the script, it's important for us to show you how you can decolonize in that way too. This is just one way to do that. Not to say that like maybe after I tell you who I am, you're like, definitely won't believe her. But, you know, it actually, people will turn off in the first however many minutes if I tell you immediately, like maybe where I went to school or what I do, right? So I just want to say thank you. So my name is Britt McClintock. I use she, they pronouns. I am the DEIB lead at UC Berkeley IT. And I am also the co-founder and cultural strategist for Susu Strategies, which is a culture change consultancy. So we do a lot of this like similar work that we've done today, and really support DEI folks, because if you haven't noticed, you know, since 2020, there have been all of these DEI jobs, but it's just for one person, usually one person for 300, 500, 700. That is a lot. And to be an expert in every one of those letters of the acronym is also a lot. So we need teams of people to do this work. And so that's something that Kayla and I try to provide different organizations with. I have been in DEI work for 15 years. I actually started all of my work in outdoor education in college. I was a guide. I used to be a backpacking and climbing guide. And then I realized I was the only Black person on most trips, sometimes the only female identifying person on most trips, and sometimes the only queer person on most of those trips. And so I was like, nature's awesome. It's like, why are we not all out here doing this? And so that is really how I started doing DEI work, and then just went from there. I also am an ethnic studies teacher, and I think that's it. Who are you?
Hey, I'm Kayla. I am the other co-founder of Susu Strategies, working alongside Britt. I am an educator and a systems thinker. I've been in education for the last decade, and think about ways to implement equitable practices within our K through 12 education. I look specifically at math and science, but have supported, you know, an entire school on doing this work in a lot of different ways, whether it be in our training, whether it be in our hiring practices, whether it be in what happens in our classrooms and our curriculum as well, or like, where do we provide access, and where are we not? Yeah, so I've been a teacher. I've worked as a recruiter of teachers in DC, and which is where I got my start, and figuring out how do you make, again, our hiring practices more equitable, but really like looking at where do we actually look for folks? Who do we allow, who has access to these applications? What questions are we asking? What biases do we have in advance, or do we have in advance going in that might exclude somebody who's perfectly qualified, right? Then looking at all of our schools, working with K through 12. I've been an elementary school teacher, a middle school teacher, and a high school administrator. So I'm just really about this education life, and really hoping that as we are thinking about building our future in students, like they are the ones who are leading it, and they are the ones who are at the center.
Yeah. And educators actually make really good strategists. And, you know, I've actually heard this really wonderful strategist say too, that Black women make really good strategists, because we have to exist in a lot of different spaces, right? And so those are just things to think about as you're bringing people in and you're hiring people, and maybe the things on their resume don't necessarily match up exactly with whatever that job description is. Doesn't mean that they can't really do a wonderful job, right? And that they can't learn how to do that job even better than someone that has all of the same things on their resume. So the last thing that we're asking of you is to just being full millennials with all these QR codes. But if you could just if you don't mind filling out this feedback form, at the end of it, we actually created an Afrofuturistic playlist for you. If you have Spotify, if you have Apple Music, I don't know, I'm so sorry. But yes, so if you fill this out really, really quick and then listen to that playlist, yeah, it has some of our favorites, I would say. And do you have anything else to add?
I don't know how much time we have left, but if there are any
Good
like quick
2 minutes.
questions, then we'll be happy to take a couple of questions. Not a unique permission. I has. Oh, I don't know anything about that. That's not
Okay.
good.
Uh-oh. You can't either.
Okay.
You guys could just tell us, I guess. No, you can definitely reach out to us. All of our information is here on the screen. And then you just go to susustrategies.com. Maybe you don't know what a susu is. That's a really cool way to learn about what a susu is. And then you can contact us that way, give us feedback that way. I don't know how we're gonna get that playlist though. It's pretty
Pretty good.
that's like the best part, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can definitely do that. But before we end, are there any final questions? I know we have a minute. Okay. Thank you all so very much for being here. We really appreciate you. We will change the settings on that. And yeah, thank you so much. Good luck. Reach out if you need anything.